Hi, everyone. So depending on how this goes, that emergency exit and bathroom information might be really important. So my name is Mike Colson. So I am a DoD SA. I cover a little bit of everybody across the MilDeps, primarily focused on Air Force and combatant commands. This is a composite conversation. We're protecting the names of the innocents because we don't want to talk about which customers specifically had failed opportunities, but I also wanted to take a few lessons learned from multiple customers. So initially my plan was to talk about Space Force as this unknown, right, mythical DoD entity. Unfortunately, that got messed up this week. So we're going to pretend like it's still mythical, and we'll go forward from there. So everyone kind of operates under this same set of constraints. And so I did DoD IT internally for operations for 20 years prior to moving over to the vendor side. I've seen this in person, both from large programs like Navy ERP to small programs with just getting UAVs off the ground. We're all asked to do more with less. The budget constraints that we're used to within IT are only getting tighter. We have constant data center consolidations. I was part of multiple data center consolidations efforts, both at the Navy as well as the Air Force and Air National Guard. The DoD model itself kind of lacks agility. When we started looking back at, if we think about like the history of how we got organized within IT structures and we tried to break down those silos, it all started back with that whole Lean Six Sigma stuff, and we kind of walked through it to the point where we're now at where we're calling it DevOps, even though it's ITIL with agility added to it. We just have that lack of agility naturally within a zero-fail state that is DoD IT, and we don't accept failure as an option. We think about the tech debt that we're trying to pay down as we're moving from on-prem into the cloud environment. That plays a lot into migration strategies as we move forward. And in fact, with both the two customers we're going to talk about, paying down tech debt was the primary driver for their migration. And then there's the bureaucracy, documentation, the acquisition, all the other layer 8 stuff that comes in the OSI model when we start talking about how does this really apply to my organization and how do we get past it so that we can actually drive innovation. And so something that came to me and something that I talked to all my customers about is when we had DebSecDef out for an EBC, executive briefing, he said that his goal was to clear the fog of war faster than our enemies. And that kind of rings true to me because that's talking about driving innovation into DoD IT. And it's regardless of whether or not we're doing it at the mission application specific level or if we're doing it at the operations level. We still have to figure out how we drive that innovation because we want to get out of that 80-20 model where 80% of our time is patching and compliance, because compliance doesn't equal security, it equals paperwork. So how do we actually drive to a point where we are 80% innovative, 80% driving change and bringing agility into our organization, and the 20% is the lights on. And that's what helps drive paying that tech debt down, that's helps get the value out of moving to the cloud. So if you've read A Tale of Two Cities, you'll understand it's the best of times, it's the worst of times. The best of times, when we see customers succeed, they understand that they can automate everything. They drive towards that. That's their primary goal. They look at, how do I fail fast? They understand that failure is an option, and specific customers have actually taken that to heart, and they say, look, we understand there's going to be road bumps, there's going to be blockers, there's going to be times where we try something and it just doesn't work. But that's not a zero-sum game. We actually just have to stand back up and reiterate and try again. The goal being, right, that we're operating within sprints and we're using some sort of scrum or something that's going to help figure out that, okay, this sprint didn't work, let's move on to the next one. Conversely, customers that don't understand that failure is an option, where they say, hey, we need to have not only HA, but we need to have fault tolerance for every single thing that we're doing, and we can't have a single failure. And in the Navy, we used to say that we just paint over the rust and call it success. This is the similar process, right? We can't just plaster it. We have to accept that that failure happened, understand, learn from it, and move on. Driving towards maturity cycles. So if we think of things on an evolutionary scale of moving from niche to product to production to, and then I lost it, to a commerce version where I'm just consuming by hour, by minute, I'm able to realize that the maturity cycle for my own organization has different pockets, right? So email might be something that's already enterprise ready, but a new application coming online could be very niche. But if I drive innovation there, I could improve the way people interact, which could then evolve the way that my messaging systems work. So just understanding that maturities drive innovation, that helps with the AI/ML. Understanding that refactoring applications, not just lifting and shifting. So lifting and shifting does what? It takes the problem from where you are and puts it in somebody else's environment, right? The cloud is just somebody else's computer. We've all heard that. The same idea is true here. If we're not reevaluating those applications and making smart decisions about how that migration strategy should work, we're basically just lifting that problem and putting it into another infrastructure. Understanding that there's too much choice sometimes in cloud can be an issue too. So we have so many services within AWS that we get into this realm of, oh, well, what service do I use? Do I use Redshift? Do I use EMR? Do I use S3? Again, the problem was I have too many choices. That's a good problem to have. You just have to experiment and figure out what works. And then analysis paralysis. So I'm sure we're all used to that, right? Where you sit down and you run a war game or a tabletop exercise, and you end up looking at the same word over and over again. Like, if the letter A is in front of the word, does that mean that we're providing that, or is somebody else providing that? And it just drives hours and hours of conversation. My last 2 days have been spent in meetings doing that. So let's talk about the story of a fail. So this customer has actually changed the whole process by which they migrated. But initial attempt was to just move a massive application catalog. They wanted to build a landing zone, which is the right concept, but they wanted to build a landing zone on the fly as they evaluated applications. They didn't have a support team that was cloud knowledgeable. They had a support team that understood what they were doing currently and how to build things as they would on-prem without taking any of the advantage of refactoring. And so by not augmenting or changing that staff, or even doing a staff evaluation to find out what talent they had internally, they just pushed forward as though they were going to be successful, and they learned on the job. That's not necessarily a bad thing to do. It's a bad thing to do when you've put all your eggs in that bucket and you have nobody leading the effort. They had fragmented migration plans. They didn't look at how the overall architecture was going to look in the end. Each application owner came in and said, hey, I'm going to do it this way, I'm going to do it that way. And they ended up with multiple services in multiple VPCs running in multiple different ways and migrating in different ways, and all calling back to what was supposed to be a centralized data repository. And that centralized data repository in and of itself was a lift and shift effort where it had no API capability directly built into it. So they were tacking on these other services and other capabilities as they were going, which was the data repository for all the applications that were trying to move at the same time. So it just wasn't successful, and it never would be, because there was no plan for how we're going to do it. There's no plan for refactoring. All the applications that were looking to migrate were lift and shift. They were doing imports. They were doing direct EC2 builds with layering applications on top the way they've always been. And these are, I mean, if you work in the DoD, I'm pretty sure you've seen the applications that are written in BASIC, Pascal, COBOL. Like, those languages still exist. They're still out there. Those are the languages that these applications are written in. And they were written, some of them, for VAX systems, and they're just like, yeah, okay, we'll figure out how that works on Linux. It was legit ridiculous. It wasn't even like, it was just a joke with some of those application stacks. And zero automation, which was probably my biggest beef when I was brought in the first couple times to help. They didn't want to automate anything. Everything had to be manual. Every process had to be manual. The thought was that if they automated a build of any instance or used auto-scaling or used CloudFormation templates to respawn VPCs from production to dev to test, or how to build that environment out, that they were going to have violations in compliance. I don't get it, right? I mean, what's the point? If you're not being consistent on your deployment, that's how you're going to get issues with compliance. So it was frustrating, not just for me, but for all the application owners who were trying to get in, because each environment was slightly different. And then security. Security. So DoD security is compliance, right, more than their security most of the time. There's definitely pockets that understand the forward-facing part of security and how it operates. But security was the office of no here. They were saying, hey, we can't take on this additional work. We don't understand it. Let's take a 6-month pause and figure out, what it's going to take to be secure in the cloud, versus understanding, okay, how segmented can we actually get within a VPC architecture? How granular can I get with my IAM control? How much visibility will I have here versus running in a large 4-letter DEC environment? And it was just that lack of knowledge, despite hours and days of education, that led to the whole team kind of having to reevaluate and getting torn down, essentially, and stood up as a new program office to continue migration efforts and completely change the way that they were moving forward. So when they got torn down and stood back up, this isn't quite them. This is a different customer, but they followed a very similar format in the reiteration. A success starts off with understanding what you don't know. And how many of you out there have been part of a Tiger team at some point? Any Tiger team. All right. So right? A Tiger team is essential because what it allows you to do is it allows you to parachute in and solve problems. It allows you to have a set of SMEs that are able to talk to other people, right? I look at it as a seeding program. If I were going to start a cult of cloud, I would start with building apostles, right, so that I have people that believe in it, and then I would seed those folks out to application owners and mission owners within my organization so that they can build believers, and then I have more believers coming in, and everyone wants to push forward in the same way. Maybe not the best analogy, but you understand where I'm going. The concept for how I win internal champions is the same. So I have to start off with how do I build that core team, and that's the Cloud Center of Excellence. And it's not just bringing in geeks, because as great as we are, we're not going to solve all the problems. So you have to bring in finance people, you have to bring in legal, you have to bring in acquisitions and contracts, and that CCOE gets built from that team. And that's how you become successful, because now I have representation from all of the different organizations within my larger org, MAGCOM, and I can actually affect change much easier. You're going to have naysayers. In fact, you want some of the naysayers in the room with you because you need to hear the other side of the opinion, right? It's not all roses. This isn't an easy thing. When we say that cloud is easy to instantiate and get going, that part, yes. Changing the way your organization works, that's another ballgame altogether. So standing up CCOE is great. But then understanding. So I have the people, but now what do I have that I'm trying to migrate? It's not just some giant platform, right, or some giant catalog. I actually have to do some rationalization of what apps are there and what apps can go. And we'll talk a little bit about design patterning today, but just understand, I need to understand and rationalize what I actually have. Once I do the app rat, I can target which applications I'm going to move. I can engage my other stakeholders. So customers that we've been really successful in have had cloud simulation workshops. In fact, multiple cloud simulation workshops in some cases. So if you think about, look through the news and see where Amazon's been successful across the DoD, those folks have pretty much all been engaged in some form of cloud simulation workshop at one time or another. And it's a 2-day workshop. We basically tabletop game how a 2-year migration would work. We bring in different leaders from different parts of the organization, and it's Monopoly meets Risk meets Choose Your Own Adventure. It's really effective to win over the naysayers. They look at app refactoring as the first strategy. So we don't look at how do I migrate this existing application, lift and shift. They say, how do I break apart this application and make it cloud friendly? If this is the most critical application that I want to bring in, how do I bring that in and make it effective? They look at automating and instantiating automation in every part of the architecture. So not just how do I build out my application and script it so it installs easier, or how do I build an AMI so that I can stand it up faster as an auto-scaling group. How do I actually build the full SCCA, Secure Cloud Computing Architecture Framework, out as an automated script so that I can reinstantiate my dev test production environments in 45 minutes or less? How do I get away from having to worry about making a network change and having one admin that is the networking guy go in and screw around and change a port? I want to automate that process and get him out of the admin loop. And then having the security team engaged, because at the end of the day, if they're going to say no, you might as well have them say no up front. But more importantly, if they're in the group in the beginning, they're not going to say no in the end because they understand the rationale. How many of you have done waterfall development? Oh, that's shocking for a DoD group. So many of you. Yeah, so that's the common thing, right? We've all done that. That's the way we've always done stuff. So when you do waterfall development, at what point is the security gate? It's not at the beginning. It's gate 40, gate 50. So you have to get through all those other gates, right, to get down to where you actually talk to security. And then security reviews it and says, no, this isn't right, or that isn't right, or you didn't think about this. And waterfall methodology doesn't start again from where they said no. It starts again at the top. So then you have to flow everything back up and go back through all those gates again. If you have security engaged in the beginning, they're going to be more understanding of your decision-making process. They're going to help you, guide you, hopefully, to making better, smarter security decisions in the beginning. So when we talk about application migration paths, this is part of a structure for a program we call the Application Migration Assessment and Readiness Planning. We understand that applications, as you increase complexity, you're increasing value. So if I'm sorry, decreasing complexity, increasing value. So if I'm looking at application patterning and say, okay, I can retain applications. That just means I'm keeping them on-prem, right? Maybe it's a bad fit. It doesn't make sense for cloud. There's something screwy going on. It runs on a mainframe, and we don't have a better architecture, and we've decided that we're not going to move it. Or I'm looking at retiring it eventually, that retiring is an option. I don't need that application anymore, or I'm bringing on new applications. I'm going to rehost it. I'm going to lift and shift. Sure, there's reasons to do it. There's cost reasons to do it if I need to get out of a data center that's costing me twice as much. If I have hosts that are dying on me and I need to immediately get an application up and I don't have time to do the refactoring, it makes sense. It might not be the best long-term strategy. Repurchase, I can say, okay, you know what? I'm going to say, forget it. I'm going out and buying a SaaS. I'm buying a PaaS. I'm just going to pay somebody else to deal with this problem. I'm going to replatform. I have to shift off of my existing OS or really expensive database system and move that into a managed service or cheaper engine licensing product. I can look at refactoring. I can actually decouple the application, break it into its smallest components, scale horizontally versus vertically, so I'm not adding additional resources. The other thing is understanding the data structure. So when we talked about the fail, we talked about how they had that single data plane and they didn't actually look at how that data was accessed. So looking at data access patterns and understanding what value I'm trying to get out of this data becomes really important. And in the story of a success, we saw the customers that have driven successful programs have always looked back at the data and mined it to find what they can do better, or what they're missing within that data that maybe they could provide as a new service altogether. Thinking, you know, I'm flying a refueling mission and I need to only make right turns because left turns cost more fuel because FedEx and, you know, refueling missions are similar. Not really, but that's fine. So the goal being, right, that if I can optimize or do some predictive analytics based off of my data set, I can be more efficient within my organization. So we have services that are able to do that. We can set up the service to pull it through, set up the analytics to pull it through, but most importantly, we're going to centralize the data because now I have the capability of having better visibility across my entire organization and bringing the data into a single repository and having a real big data conversation around what I'm trying to achieve. If you think about how we've tried to do this in the past, it's been a lot of disparate groups trying to say, hey, I want to be a big data organization, or I want to have a data lake. Love those terms. They're great, you know, buzzwords, but do they really do anything for you if at the end of the day not everyone's participating in the same data lake? That's kind of the beauty of cloud, is because we're building this into one architecture, we have the capability easily through API call to push data all into a central repository and actually mine data as it was meant to be. Make sense? So when we talked about that evolution over time, right, the journey to the cloud, and it is a journey. This isn't a, hey, look at us, we moved a server to the cloud, we're done. No, I mean, thanks, but no, that's not quite how it works. You have to iterate over time. You have to understand that just because you moved it doesn't mean you're finished. Now, where's the value in that move? How do I abstract more? How do I now innovate on what I've already done? So we move from that project where, you know, it's 4 admins in a room standing up their first account with a purchase card and saying, look, we got cloud, to, all right, now we've actually set up a platform that we're going to stand up on. Maybe it's the virtual data center security stack. Maybe it's just a VPC that's running some test servers. And then slowly we see, all right, now we understand how this works. How do we move what we have on-prem out there and gain value from it? And then as we trickle and matriculate those applications from on-prem into a cloud and we start interoperating and we're seeing how quickly applications can communicate versus having to run through multiple layers of bureaucracy, we see that, okay, some of these applications are either performing same or similar functions. Let's decouple some additional pieces, break the application out, refactor it, reinvent it, create mobile devices, mobile applications. Great story that you'll probably hear this week is Moncton, that's out in the show floor. Moncton helped develop a application for aircraft maintenance, where on the flight line we have engineers that are running around doing red tagging aircraft for maintenance, and they have to walk back to the hangar to enter the maintenance ticket. Now they have a mobile GFE device. They can enter the maintenance information on the flight line. It relays back into a cloud application, which updates down to the NIPR, back into the database. That's saving tens of thousands of man hours a year. Simple, right? Reinvention of how we operate. But it's just common sense applied to IT. Understanding that there is a process to this. So when we talk about what those phases are, it's not just, hey, we're going to get going. We're going to say, all right, let's start off with understanding what the migration looks like. Why are you trying to move to the cloud? Because the why is really important. When we talk about DevOps, we talk about bringing the business back into IT so that we understand the value and the goal for us. On the DoD side, it's about what's the mission driving us? Like, how do we actually help the warfighter? So understanding what that use case is and what those applications are used for and how they're used helps drive how we're gonna migrate, how we're gonna evolve, which applications should go first. We then do the portfolio discovery and planning. We look at the application design cycle and we make changes to that based off of how that application looks, because what we've found is traditionally when we look at an application, we all think we know how our applications work, but then we start finding all the interdependencies and hooks and how this database engine is pulling from our database even though we didn't know about it until we cut the connection off. Or there's some application that's been running in the back of the data center for the last 50 years and no one's touched it. But the second that we turned it off because we thought we were going to retire it, somebody screamed and apparently it was running all F-18s. I mean, just saying. And then how do we operate those within the new cloud paradigm? How do we shift? How do we make the changes? And then this becomes the flywheel. We're big on flywheels at Amazon. This is the flywheel. We just continuously do this. And as we bring in more applications, you're going to see that more folks are willing to come on board with you. So then how do we migrate them and what's their business case? So how do we do the patterning for that? Well, we've kind of talked about what those options are. This is sort of the decision tree. We say, okay, look, we have a defined pattern. We're going to make the migration decision here. We're going to retain, we're going to retire, or we're going to go through another process. And while all of these are valid, I again caution you that post that first set of manual installs, everything should be automated. Live by the idea that you should be automating yourself out of a job so that you can do the next cool thing. That should be the goal. If we have to do something more than once, we should be automating it. Because odds are you're going to do it 3 times, you're going to do it 100 times. And the more applications you bring in, the more times you're going to have to do it. And I don't know about you, but carpal tunnel is a real thing, and you just keep clicking, it gets old. So just script it out. Be done with it and move on. There's tons of tools out there, both third-party and partners. We have migration services to help get things going. There's transfer services, there's snowballs, there's all kinds of stuff. Don't be afraid to use other tools. You're not alone in how we do this, right? There's a reason that we developed this. If we think about how large internet service providers used to transfer their search engine data worldwide, it was with disks and crates. I've shipped multiple storage arrays in boxes with shelves to get them to data centers to seed data. We have tools that'll help you so you don't have to do that anymore. Understand that we have a free service called the Migration Acceleration Program and MRA. So we'll do the MRA, which is the Migration Readiness Assessment, come out. We help you understand the first set of applications and how they migrate. That's a free service that we can offer. It runs a week, low level of effort, but it kind of gets you thinking about how things should work. And then the MAP comes in and actually is typically a paid engagement, but could be free depending on size and scope. And we come in and actually help you with that initial landing page creation and migration. So just more capabilities from AWS that we're trying to show and bring so that you can get started and the pain is eased. Not completely, but some of it. Understand that when you build out that Cloud Center of Excellence, you're going to look at your migration strategies, look at the portfolio. These folks are going to help you. I cannot stress enough how important the Cloud Center of Excellence is, because people and process have to change at some point, and these are the folks that are going to lead that effort. Now let's talk about some decisions. So we've looked at, what the success was, what the fail was, and we can get into more technical detail if you want during the question piece. But the real challenge was, again, people process. How do I build that team? So it's okay to bring folks in, right? We can outsource some of this and bring in solutions integrators and help build out and augment that organization, or we can do organic growth. I worked on a Marine Corps program where we actually did a talent assessment, and there was a PFC that had mad programming skills, like sick. Was able to fully write the first set of mobile applications for the Marine Corps within a week, and did it on his own time, right? And that just came out because we sent out a skills assessment, and it was completed, and he said he had the skills, and we brought him in to try it, and it worked. So you might have folks sitting in your organization today that are just underutilized and could be part of this Tiger team moving forward. Understanding the difference between long-term objectives and short-term wins. We talk about this as not sacrificing for that short-term internally, because while it's great and we can get a couple really easy wins out the door and stand something up fast, is it the right way to do it? Maybe, depends, it always depends, but sometimes we have to look at the longer term strategy. We have to look at what's best for the organization, what's gonna be the best path forward, how do we set them up for success in multiple migrations. So maybe that quick lift and shift will make sense, but maybe we just need to put a hold on it and figure out, all right, if we refactor these sets of applications, what are the implications for all other data sets underlying and all other applications moving forward? And sometimes you just have to do that. Other times, again, if it's a cost thing and you just need to get up and running, sometimes that short-term win makes more sense. But making that decision for your own organization and understanding all of the pieces that go with it is critical. Communicating both the successes and the failures. So the DoD does not like communicating when they fail, do they? Not so much, really. But having that conversation with others that are in the same boat helps. So things like this, where we're bringing together multiple folks across public sector to have conversations about common use cases, having the ability to stand up on stage as a customer and tell your story. I've been lucky enough to be part of reInvent sessions where I've spoken along customers, and the effects of post session where folks come up and they're like, wow, I had that same problem, you know, this is how I overcame it, I like how you did it, you know, we should collaborate. That actually propels success much faster. I get it, we work in a very guarded world, but being able to share it, even if it's just amongst yourselves, and maybe even, I've had this thought before, starting an AWS support group for DoD and public sector would help facilitate that. But we need to get to a point where we're comfortable understanding that failure was an option, and we can share it. Sometimes you're gonna have to keep it secret, I get it. But being able to communicate both that failure as well as, hey, look what worked, is powerful stuff. And then the last one, so there's two pieces to this. So when we understand, when we look at the really big customers that have been successful in the DoD, they had to take a mix. So we're building champions. It's an internal sales process for any of us in this room that are going back to our organization and saying, hey, we want to move to the cloud. We have to have executive sponsorship. So how do we gain that executive sponsorship? We got to get somebody on board, whether that's a 4-star, whether that's just some SESer, like we have to have them believe that this cloud thing is a good option. And while we build that business case, we need to also understand that their objectives and goals might be different than our objectives and goals. So while I talk about mission focus, which is very important, you might find that there's somebody in FM or the finance org that has a real pain point that they can't get around, and maybe it's just something's running slow like SAP in September timeframe. So how do I help them? And maybe by taking on that difficult internal application and not just the mission application, I can gain another champion that when we go back up to the exec and say, hey, we've successfully migrated this internally and it's improved process times by 110%, that now they're gonna be pushing as well, and you're gonna find that they're less likely to say, well, cloud's expensive, or whatever the latest FUD is, and we'll be able to actually push forward. So I've said it a couple times, but failure is an option. Failure is always an option. Please understand failure is an option. Embrace it. If you don't like failure and fail fast, you can say experiment fast. I don't care. It's semantics. But just know that it's part of how you move forward, right? You got to fall down a little bit. You're going to try something. It's not going to work. You try something else. Don't be afraid of it. Don't back down. Just keep going. Push through. It's going to be successful. Just like anything you built on-prem, it's just something new. Change is inevitable. Just go with it. And then build towards the MVP. So when you look at how I'm developing an application or how I'm building out an environment, I'm driving towards a minimally viable product. I don't need perfection. Perfection is the enemy of progress. If I think that I need perfection, I'm never going to get there. But if I think that I need to get to that minimally viable product, and then I can iterate and make changes and be more successful as I move forward and find more value as I drive into those iterations, well, now I've set myself up for success. Because when I do that initial release, that's not the last release I'm going to do. Makes sense, right? It's not crazy. I don't know, some of you are looking at me like it is crazy, but it's not crazy. So that's all I got. I'm open for questions, and I would ask, please, I really value your feedback. This is the first time we've run through this session, so if you could fill out your survey, it's in the app, I'd really appreciate it. If any questions, please step to the mic, and I'll do my best to answer them.
Hello, hello.
Hey.
What do you think about containerizing legacy applications?
Yeah, so containerization is a great technology that has its use cases. I think I look at it as a stopgap. So if I need to quickly move an application and I need to isolate and create it in a way that it can scale in an automated fashion, and I don't want to use a full server, or I want to drop down the footprint, containerization is great. There's other better ways to use containerization than dropping legacy apps in it, but yeah, absolutely. I think you need to look at it from two tracks. So if it were me and I were setting up my sprint schedule, I would have one team working a sprint on containerization and one team working on a refactoring or a refactoring evaluation, and then make the determination based off of the outcome of the two sprints as to which path to go forward, right? That gives me my iteration, my fail-fast approach to how I want to evaluate the application stack. Yeah?
Hi.
Hi.
So you talked about having, a quick win with an application and selling that up to so you can gain executive sponsorship, right?
Yeah.
So what if it's the other way around? Your executive sponsors are bought into cloud. They have an agenda. They want you to do more, better, faster, right? Quick. And you're saying, let's not lift and shift everything just to get out of the data center. Let's stop and do some of that refactoring and that automation.
Right.
And so, you want to take the right approach, but your executive sponsors want to see quantitative rather than qualitative results, right? So then how do you convince that, DevOps is not slowing you down, automation is not slowing you down long term, it's going to be your biggest benefit?
Yeah, so it goes to the MVP model, right? So and congratulations, by the way, if you have the executive sponsorship already, that's pretty awesome. But so the goal is then, okay, I need to get that success out there. I need to move as fast as I can. So you take some risks. You say, okay, I will look at how I have these applications structured today. I will iterate what I can, and if I have to lift and shift, I will, but that's not my first choice. I would definitely suggest looking at the migration cloud simulation journey for your organization, because it'll help kind of level set from an executive level, but I think you're going to have a mix, and that's okay. You're going to have things where you're going to say, okay, within my organization, my CCOE, I'm going to have these folks focus on applications that need immediate lift, and they're going to do a non-refactored approach to bringing these applications on board. And some of that might just be databases, some of it might be back-end services. And then I'm going to have anything that can be quickly refactored, evaluated, and pushed forward with the focus on MVP. So I don't want to spend months and months and months building out a refactored application. I want to spend a couple sprints, 2-week sprints, by the way, not DoD-ized 6-month sprints. 2-week sprints, pop, get an application up, and then figure out how I iterate to get to what I had on-prem.
Right, so that's one of the approaches we took, like things that were already like either using Git or on our DevOps tool chain. We tried to get the low-hanging fruit first, and then if we have to lift and shift anything, our approach is, that those things that don't have active development going on or active support teams are going to be, hard to onboard to the tool chain. So we could maybe lift and shift those and let our legacy, support staff lift and shift those.
What's that decision tree too, right? If you start looking at those applications, if no one's supporting them, do they exist? I mean,
they exist.
It's a little, but I mean, like, it's a little Schrodinger's cat, right? Like, okay, if no one's supporting it, is it still alive? Like, okay, they're there, but can I just refactor it and kill what exists today? Can I understand what the function of that is and just be done with it? Because I don't want to continue to support somebody's junk.
Yeah, but it's difficult when you when you try to refactor it. You don't have someone who understands the architecture of it, or if,
1,000,000% agree.
Yes.
Yeah. So, no, it's I think I said this at the top. This isn't easy, right? It's a challenge, and every organization that's been successful at this has realized this is a challenge. But you have to make the hard decisions at some point. You have to understand, okay, if I have no one who understands this, right? And this happens, so let me tell you a quick story about oscilloscopes. So oscilloscopes are used across the DoD for analytics use on airframes, on vehicles, everything, electronics. Anyway, there's oscilloscopes still in use that run Windows 95. That's an unsupported operating system for those of you in the DoD. That can't be patched, like it can't be run anymore, but it's still a network-connected device. So once I run and get my report off of the airframe, I'm running that back into my data center and plugging it in and pulling data. Are you kidding me? So at some point you have to just make a decision, like literally any other oscilloscope built after 2000 is not going to run 95. Like, let me just buy something new and figure it out. I'm not saying that I have all the answers for you, because it's a depends situation, but I think you just got to, at some point, somebody's got to make the decision to cut bait on the way things are run before and move forward.
Right. And then another thing that you touched on was not trying to move forward while you're trying to figure out your migration path. There's something to that effect, right? Which has been our issue, right? As soon as we got our ATO in the cloud, it was trying to migrate applications with agility, and then trying to and then moving from agility to cloud forms, and then moving from cloud forms to API, and the whole while our architecture is changing while we're trying to assess apps and migrate them at the same time. But then again, that comes from that executive level pressure down, that once they got ATO, it was like, okay, put something in the cloud. But we didn't even have half the services we needed to put things in the cloud.
Right,
so it's difficult.
You're building a plane in flight.
Right.
Yeah, no, and you know what, that's pretty typical. It comes down to, so for better or worse, I was raised by a Master Chief in the Navy, and I came up with the understanding that you plan your work and work your plan. So it's great that you have all this top cover, but if they don't understand that you're wasting time and money by trying to build a plane in flight, like that's never going to be a 737. Like you have to understand what that structure needs to look like. And it's not hard from how do I organize and what this should look like. That part, I mean, there's plenty of application design templates out there that can help. I'd say engage the SA, and if not, I'll give you a card and I'll help figure this out. But there's patterns already out there that are pre-built CloudFormation templates that you can spin up,
Right,
get you
we're looking at that
the
now.
baseline. Yeah, absolutely, right? Get that
Right.
baseline built out so that you understand how the landing pad looks. And once the landing pad's built, then applications have a place to sit. Then it's application pattern understanding. How does this application look? And once I understand patterning, every application that's like this should look like this on a migration path,
Absolutely.
right?
I agree. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Quick question on those cloud simulation workshops.
Yeah.
How far in advance of your migration date should you be holding one or multiple?
So typically we see them really early in the planning stage for an organization while they're still trying to understand what the cloud can bring for them. But you can hold them at any point. At any point you're going to find value because regardless of your organization's size or structure, you're going to have folks that are naysayers, and that sort of event helps level set for everyone. What's the expectation? What should I see? How should I make these decisions? So it's valuable at any point.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Well, thank you all. I guess time is up. Really appreciate you coming in. And again, please fill out the surveys. Thank you.